Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa, and I am incredibly honored to welcome Phillip Dane to the show. He has had an incredible influence on the entire culture of Los Angeles, from the Melrose Fairfax market to the odd market. I mean, really, you have had an incredible impact, not only in my life, but the entire city of Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
Right? Iconic
Wow.
fair.
That's a good intro.
Yeah, it is. Welcome to the show. She's very good at what she does,
Yes.
isn't she?
But what's so
you.
cool is that we want to hear your story today, because people love these things you put on, but I'm sure they're dying to know, how did it start? How did this all come about?
You want the truths?
Absolutely.
We want the dirt.
So,
All right. So back in, so I'll make it as brief as possible. Back in 1991, I came out here. I was doing consulting work for for a company. I started my business when I was 15, so I've been at it for a long time. And by this time, I was like 22, something like that. So I came out here to do consulting, and I was supposed to leave to go back to New York. And a friend of mine took me to the Rose Bowl. And I was like, this thing, it's massive.
Good friend.
The Rose Bowl market?
The Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And I had never seen anything so big. And it was hot, and wound up back at the Snake Pit on Melrose back then, and had a couple too many,
One of those days.
and wound up parking on Melrose and Fairfax, saying, I shouldn't be driving. I'm just going to hang out here. And I just looked over and I saw this empty parking lot, and the way it happens with me is it goes from 0 to 100 in about 2 seconds. And I made a phone call the next day. Within a week, I had that lot. And I had never done a flea market before. And I started out, hired a bunch of kids that lived at the apartment complex that I was living in Westwood. And basically hired, I think, 80% of Icelandics that were living in LA back then. And so then I started it, and it was the worst start I'd ever had in any business.
Why?
No, I had 40 vendors on the corner there, and the winds were blowing like you would never believe, and stuff was crashing, and it was a mess. And I'm sitting there and I'm going,
LA is not a windy city either, by the way.
It's not supposed to be. And I'm literally sitting there going, well, I better get to catch that flight back to New York, now, right?
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting there, every single one of these 40 vendors came up and said, can you book me in for the month? And I was just looking at them like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And how many years ago was that?
1991.
Wow. And every Sunday, if you haven't been, there's an incredible market on the corner of Fairfax and Melrose. And
it's not mine anymore. So I want to just say that I was the founder of the original market there. And then that's a whole different story
you created a culture. I mean, every Sunday people go to this place. They get the empanadas. They listen to the live music.
Yeah.
They find it's like a treasure hunt at these places. When my mom comes in from Michigan, she loves to go. We've bought furniture there, handmade jewelry pieces, antiques. Really, it's like the treasures of Los Angeles live on this corner. You curated that. That's incredible.
Thank you. She may know my mom. She's from Michigan.
Oh, really? What part?
Detroit.
All right, East Side, West Side. So that's obviously evolves into what you're doing now with odd markets. Tell us a little bit about that.
There were a lot of events in between. Peddler on the Roof, which was at Sunset Gower Studios on the rooftop, and I did Dodger Stadium. My wife and I produced that event at Dodger Stadium. That was a really big event for 3 months. And then Odd Market came because Vertigo downtown asked me to do an event there. And I loved the space, and we were driving away from the space, and I said, to my wife, I said, Shelley, we need a name, and she's like, well, that's easy. It used to be the Odd Fellow Temple. So it's got to be the Odd Market. So there it goes, Odd Market. And, we did like a few events there, and we closed that one, and Odd Market just kind of stuck. And basically the Odd Market is all about, it's very family centric. I've got 5 kids. So I need events that I can bring the kids to, and they do. They come. One of them works for me, works for us at the market. So it's kind of neat. We get them involved.
So tell us about what the market is.
Odd Market is basically a curated show of about 50 vendors held every 3rd Friday of the month at the Gene Autry Museum in Griffith Park. Next one's next Friday nights from 6 to 11. We bring in 22 food trucks, 3 local emerging bands, no cover songs, full bar. The Autry's gracious enough to allow the gallery to be open, which is great for them also, because I looked at the numbers, and our guests are the only ones that can go into the museum during that time period up until 9 o'clock, and they get about 1,000 of them that go into the museum. So you ask most people about the Autry, and they go, where? You have to say, well, do you know where the zoo is? Yeah, we'll turn around. and there's the Autry. So so now the Autry's kind of, I hope we're helping it put them on the map. But we get, I mean, the first day we did the show, which was this is our 4th year. First day we did the show, you know, you're always nervous about doing a new show. So my wife and I are sitting there, and lo and behold, there's these lines to get into the event, which is always a good sign. But what was baffling is that the show is from 6 to 11. You would not believe how many kids are at this show. I mean, I'm talking from infants to you know, kids everywhere.
LA kids have late nights.
It was kind of crazy because we didn't bring our 7.5-year-old, well, back then, to the show because we're like, there's gonna be no kids there. Yeah. And now it's grown into this massive kids event where we bring in 9, you know, the inflatable bouncy stuff. When we bring in 9 or 10 huge kind of, I mean, they're scary almost. Wow. You know, there's one that's a jump off. So we have tons of stuff for kids. We have free face painting for a couple hours. We have a full bar. We have free parking, so you can park anywhere at the zoo.
What's been the most rewarding part of this journey for you? I mean, hosting these events in Los Angeles.
Hearing people, what their reactions are. You know, when they, we also own a store downtown called Handcrafted LA, which was an offshoot of Odd Markets. It's a high-end curated store at the Block on 7th and Flower. And that is a showplace for a lot of these emerging artists, designers to go and show off. And they're there for a month to 3 months. But the greatest thing, you know, is just seeing these kids racing in, you know, at 6 o'clock and staying all night. And when they leave, just beaming and everybody's happy. And you know.
Love that. What have you learned about creating successful events? So between 22, I guess, when you started, and well, you're 23 now. So
yeah,
what have you learned in that period of time? Yeah.
Well, I'm still waiting to do the successful event. So
Not true.
You know, I think I'm not. I love it. Focus TV. I'm not very focused. You know, I guess I'm ADHD, and so last night I was making pickles. Right? Never made. Right. So I'm making bread and butter pickles, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm making bread and butter pickles." And so I made them, and they came out fantastic. So immediately my head goes to Phil's Pickles. I've got packaging in my brain. I've got all. So I think the best thing that I've learned is to stay focused. You know, and that's been a lot. You know, that's my wife. Shelley is the one that. She kind of keeps me focused, and she's really subtle. Like she walked into my office the other day, and she said, "Hey, honey." Because I just got off the phone and I decided to do another business. I just hung up. And my wife walks into the office and she says, "Hey, babe, listen, here, your death or divorce if you start another business." And it's that little bit of subtlety that really kicks it in. Because if she was hard about it, I don't know, I think I might, you know.
It's
so now I can only do, I just come up with hobbies instead of business.
We've got those innovative minds, creative minds. We want to like keep going. Yeah, it's like honing it down.
So being focused, honesty, you know, and which has not always been, you know, something that's, you know, I raising all these kids. There was a lot of alcohol and stuff back in the day, and it was really damaging, and it was hard. And so now with Shooter, who's our 7.5-year-old, it's a whole different story, you know. And being 51 raising a kid, and being, you know, 30 raising a kid, big difference, you know.
Well, yeah, when we clean up our lives and we stay focused, it's a little easier.
It is.
Go figure.
It is. I wake up every morning, and I'm blessed that my wife, you know, we have this routine. I get up, I go into my office, I do some work there while Shooter runs around, and she just wrangles them in. And it's like, you know, she's got it timed. She's like Waze. You know what I mean? Like she literally knows, like, if I start here and I'm going to be done here, and she's got it down. It allows me to do my stuff. But every morning we walk them up to camp. That's why she couldn't be here today.
I love how much you love her. I
mean, my wife?
Honestly, I mean, it's incredible to listen to the story of such a successful man and businessman. Credit the woman in his life as well. And I think that's incredible.
No, well, thanks.
And also, you know, events, one thing that we're just learning that everyone loves online, but people need to come together. It's our nature, it's our spiritual nature. So thank you so much for for doing that, for having things where people can go experience, have great times together, and keep it up.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
creating
welcome.
culture
Well,
and community. We
hope you come out and check them out. So
Absolutely.
it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so when's the date of the next event?
It's the Odd Market. It's Odd Nights at the Autry next Friday.
Next
Yeah,
Friday.
the 20th from 6 to 11.
Amazing.
And yeah.
Awesome.
a
Well,
lot
we
of
hope to
fun.
see you there, Los Angeles. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Good Morning La La Land.